For thousands of years, humans have been completing projects with unforeseen consequences. Due to ambition and the indomitable human spirit, we usually have very little regard for the side effects of our little projects. Yet usually, when the dust has settled, there's no going back. For example, due to human neglect, we have quite literally driven a hole through the ozone layer above Antarctica. Though it is healing, according to NASA, the hole will not be fully healed until 2066. All of this to say, we never know the true ramifications of what we do until it's too late. Composers use the term opus as a numbering system for their pieces. This is where the term Magnum opus comes from, and it means the greatest artwork of a specific composer. In the high echelon of Magnum opuses, you have Mahler's Fifth Symphony, the moment Rachmaninoff touched heaven in his second piano concerto, and Holst's The Planets. However, not just composers have Magnum opuses. The Taj Mahal, the Sydney Opera House, and the Burj Khalifa are all architectural wonders. Now take, for example, the Wasl Tower in Dubai. This building stands 63 stories tall, 990 feet in total. Now put it on its side and make it sail at speeds of 45 miles an hour. The SS United States was launched in 1951 and designed by William Francis Gibbs, one of the most prominent naval architects of the time. Similar to other ships of the era, it was built as a luxury liner, but also with the dual purpose of being an auxiliary ship during times of war. The SS United States served as the five-star pathway from Europe to the New World, and was the culmination of 20th century Americana. After dominating the transatlantic travel scene for over 100 years, Europe was finally topped by William Francis Gibbs' Magnum Opus. The illustrious 17-year career of the nation's flagship ended in 1969 after carrying such precious cargo such as President Truman, President Eisenhower, President Kennedy, Elizabeth Taylor, and Sean Connery, and many others. Unlike other ships that may or may not have movies about them, the SS United States never once had an accident. The ship's notoriety did not come from a terrible tragedy, but from being a perfect, pristine vessel. As Mr. Francis Gibbs once said, quote, "You can't set her on fire, you can't sink her, and you can't catch her, and you should not sink her for monetary gain." In October of 2024, Okaloosa County approved the purchase of the SS United States for $1 million. The vessel was bought to be sunk off the coast of Destin for Walton Beach as a part of their artificial reefing program, a program where they take old ships and sink them to the bottom of the ocean for divers to explore. I will leave an interactive map in the description so you can look for yourself. Okaloosa County is working tirelessly to pivot the county, specifically the Destin for Walton area, into the diving capital of the United States. Putting cool, retired ships for divers to explore is a very novel idea. However, in the case of the SS United States, there are a few problems. In order for the ship to, quote, last forever, Mr. Francis Gibbs had the vessel extensively treated with zinc chromate containing coating/primer. As we now know, zinc chromate is a hazardous chromium compound associated with hexavalent chromium and contains high levels of it. Something important to note is that hexavalent chromium is sometimes referred to as chromium 6+. Dr. Todd Z. Osborne of the University of Florida addressed the Board of County Commissioners regarding chromium chemistry and environmental concerns.
Now, it's been suggested, or so I've heard in previous meetings, that this will be okay, it naturally converts to chromium-3. Well, as a chemist, I want to tell you that that is not necessarily the case. Yes, that can happen, but that is a reductive oxidation chemical process we call redox chemistry. And what that means is this occurs, and it's biologically mediated by bacteria that thrive in areas of no oxygen. This means, hypoxia or anoxic conditions, right? So we don't see that reduction, that change from chromium-6 to chromium-3 readily in an oxidized environment, meaning oxygen is present. So this vessel may sink into the sediment, and true that the portions of the vessel that are actually under the sediment surface can experience anaerobic conditions with no oxygen, and that chromium may be reduced. but the vast majority of this vessel is not going to be underground. It's going to be in the water column. Oxygen will be present, as we all hope, right, for the fish to be there. And the toxicity opportunity here, the mode of toxicity, can be tremendous.
As Dr. Osborne explained, in oxygen-rich Gulf waters, anaerobic conditions would likely only occur in portions of the vessel buried under sediment. It is also important to note that in recent years, we have been experiencing what are known as dead zones. These dead zones are patches of water that have very little to no oxygen, making it hard for sea life to live and thrive. According to an article written by Ashlyn Mitchell, quote, "The county maintains that zinc chromate is not federally regulated in the context of artificial reefing and that saltwater conditions in the Gulf differ significantly from drinking water systems," unquote. According to the same article, Okaloosa County asserts that, quote, "Okaloosa County follows all standards from the regulatory agencies regarding the deployment of the SS United States and all of the artificial reefs we have deployed. The EPA, Maritime Administration, best management practices for preparing vessels intended to create artificial reefs establishes the national standard for cleaning and preparation of reefing vessels." Yes, that may very well be true, but just because current artificial reef guidance may not specifically prohibit residual zinc chromate coatings in this context, that doesn't mean we don't have to take it out of the ship you are sinking. Multiple professionals and experts have raised concerns about whether the vessel should be deployed without additional review and remediation. Yet Okaloosa County insists the vessel has been vetted of all toxic materials. According to an update presented to the Board of County Commissioners on December 9, 2025, the fuel tanks have all been emptied and cleaned. Additionally, the Natural Resources Chief stated that all exfoliated paint has been scraped off, vacuumed up, and if it contains PCBs, it was sent up to Michigan, meaning if the paint is still fully on the ship, it will stay. It is clear, and I for one believe the county when they say this, they have done a good job removing PCBs. This may have even been their number one priority when remediating the ship, and I am thankful for that. Same with lead and asbestos. However, according to the Natural Resources Chief, quote, "As long as there's no peeling paint that contains zinc chromate, it can remain on the ship itself." He cites that zinc chromate is not federally regulated when it comes to artificial reefing, and it does not have to come off.
And last, zinc chromate and hexavalent chromium, which has been a hot topic recently, and I have one slide on that. Zinc chromate is not a federally regulated material that requires removal from the SS United States. It's treated just like lead and asbestos. So as long as there's no peeling paint that contains zinc chromate, it can remain on the ship itself. But zinc chromate is also it's very different in a freshwater environment versus a saltwater environment. So in freshwater environments, a lot of times they're very closed systems or semi-closed systems, and that ends up in your drinking water, and the freshwater itself doesn't lend to actually breaking down the zinc chromate. But in the case of saltwater, in the open ocean or the open Gulf for that matter, it does lend itself to breaking down the zinc chromate or the hexavalent chromium down to a trivalent chromium, which is a totally different scenario and a lot less toxic material. The EPA and the other regulatory agencies that comment on all of these projects have not raised any concerns about hexavalent chromium or zinc chromate, so we're proceeding with the guidance that are in the documents that we have at hand.
All claims stated by the Natural Resources Chief were addressed by Dr. Todd Osborne's video to the Board of County Commissioners.
Chromium 6+, what we call it, hexavalent chromium, is extremely toxic to aquatic organisms. And as a chemist, I see the effects of toxicity in the environment all the time, and I will tell you that hexavalent chromium is one of the worst when it comes to heavy metal toxicities. And what happens is, and this works on several levels in aquatic organisms. Of course, the invertebrates, the things that live in the sediment, and the small encrusting organisms are usually the ones that feel it first. And this can be organ damage, this can be DNA damage, and it can be significant reproductive harm in the case that may even cease reproductive activities. Now you scale that up with vertebrate organisms like fish. They consume these organisms, and they're also exposed directly by water or sediment if they're active in the sediment. and those organisms experience toxicity on all the levels I just mentioned, as well as probably the more insidious one, which is bioaccumulation, meaning they bring on a body burden of this material, and its toxic effects continue through the food web, as it were, as larger organisms consume the smaller ones. So fish can be very dangerous that way, and they don't stay put. Of course, they migrate around, and so we spread toxicity with that.
To clarify, zinc chromate is federally regulated by OSHA and is listed as a hazardous substance under the Comprehensive Environmental Response, Compensation, and Liability Act of 1980. It is, however, not regulated when it comes to artificial reefing, and just because it isn't regulated, it doesn't mean it does not pose a harm to wildlife and humans. PCBs, which are the county's #1 concern, did not become federally regulated until the Toxic Substances Control Act of 1974. Later regulations came from the EPA in 1978, and then a flat-out ban in 1979. All of this to say, the county has very little regard for the side effects of their little project, and as I said in the introduction, once the dust has settled, there's no going back. Steve Perry and Justin Ruby are members and leaders of the SS United States Preservation Foundation. I met them at the Okaloosa County Board of County Commissioners meeting on April 7th, and they have been in contact with the county for months, raising concerns about long-term chromium exposure and release into Gulf waters over time. Communications have been inconsistent between the Preservation Foundation and the county, but I would like to play a clip from the County Commissioners meeting from May 5th, 2026.
My name is Steve Perry. I'm the Vice President of the SS United States Preservation Foundation. I'm here to speak about some things that took place a couple weeks ago. At the end of the last meeting in Shalimar, I made a comment that I was successful in arranging a meeting with Mr. Fogg for the following day. I attended that meeting, and it was in presence of Mr. Fogg, Mrs. Adams, Mr. Maddox, and Mr. Coffey. I requested the meeting, as Ms. Ketchel had said, Mr. Palmer has recommended, you recommended to the gentleman the last time, Mr. Goodwin, to talk with Alex and everything like that. So I had some questions I wanted to talk with him about. Unfortunately, the meeting did not go anywhere or anything like I expected it to. It was, the best way to describe it, it was an ambush, a railroading, and a private lynching by your county employees, specifically Mr. Maddox and Mr. Coffey. Now, I know you guys have told me to direct this to the board. Ms. Adams and Mr. Fogg were actually very respectful. Mr. Fogg spoke maybe 10 words the whole time. I wanted to ask him some questions, but I was not even given that opportunity to, except for once. It was very unprofessional of your county employees to treat me this way. I've been here 18 times now to speak to you about subjects, and I wanted some answers or at least have a dialogue. And I wanted to be able to have that ability, and that was not provided to me. Going forward, I will not speak with your county employees or have a private meeting with Maddox or Coffey again. Mr. Hoff said that's very important for you to know because of the way he treated me and everything like that. We all know there's plenty of history. I'm not here to throw someone on the bus, but Flagler Live, Observer, local news, Daytona Beach News, there's plenty of history. Even people at the last meeting spoke up and public comment about Mr. Coffey and everything like that. I wish that meeting had been recorded so you would have proof, because it was 1 against 4. I had asked my colleague who could not attend if he could listen in and that was denied. So unfortunately, you have no public record. It's 1 against 4. But again, I want to stress the importance that Ms. Adams was respectful, asked questions. I wish Mr. Fogg would have engaged a little bit more, but he basically sat there, looked bored and uninvited, or like he was wasted his time even being there. With that going forward, it's just seriously important for you to understand. And Mr. Mixon, I'd appreciate if I come up here 1,500 miles every time. I'd appreciate 3 minutes of your time to hear my speech and everything like that. I just think it's important for you to give me these 3 minutes to talk about issues we've raised. The one information I did get from Mr. Coffey or from Mr. Fogg was you have actually done no testing of zinc chromate, painting, or anything to collaborate or deny what we've given you a 70-page report on. Documentation from a professor with a PhD and other people that have provided you, and you've done nothing to collaborate or deny that information and everything. So I think it's very important for you to know this. And it was very disappointing to be treated this way by your county employees. I will only speak with this board going forward and the elected officials, unless there's a reason to meet privately, and if it will be, it will need to be recorded or documented appropriately. Thank you.
Chairman, I'd like to say something.
Mr. Perry, I'm very sorry that happened. I don't speak for the whole board, but I'm very sorry that happened. Everybody who comes in my office, whether I agree or disagree with them, is treated with respect. And if they're not, then I shouldn't be in this position. And I am very sorry to hear this. And I will be handling it behind the scenes. Thank you for telling us about this.
Mr. Chairman, I understand there's an idea to handle something behind the scenes. However, this is a battle of opinions. I wasn't there. I don't think any of us were. I don't know that we can take a stance of saying something will be handled behind the scenes when we don't know what happened. We have one person saying they didn't like the outcome of a meeting.
Hang on, Steve. I'm gonna jump in right here. So here's the reality of it.
In follow-up to what I spoke about earlier, Mr. Goodwin, I haven't, and I'm not speaking about the historical nature and everything of the ship. I've talked about that. It's a done deal. You're entitled to your opinion. If you're getting messages and stuff about people that are concerned about it, this should be raising an issue that, you know, questions why you're doing this. But that's not my concern. I've spoken in depth about that. You guys have an opinion, I have an opinion. And those are opinions. Most of my opinions are based on fact about the historical nature of the ship, but that's irrelevant. What I wanted to talk about 2 weeks ago was to bring up environmental stuff, the stuff we've been bringing up since I first mentioned it in March of 2025 when the ship came in, and we went in depth in September 2nd meeting when my colleague Justin Ruby, and you ended up having a 10 to 15 minute dialogue about this. This is what I wanted to bring up to your staff so they could research it or at least answer whether they've done it. And these include numerous issues that have not been addressed, whether in public or private, because what occurred in December when Mr. Fogg came and asked for the other 2.95 million and gave this little summary stuff, that wasn't bait. That was just, again, opinion. Where's the fact to support what he's claiming? Like hexavalent chromium breaks down in the trichromium. We have a professor with a PhD that says that's not the case. It's not that simple. In fact, your safety officer said to me at that time, I asked him, can I know where you got your source of information? He goes, it took me 30 seconds. I Googled it. Wow. He Googled it. Amazing research instead of what a professor with PhD or an environmental activist that resulted in the largest class action lawsuit in the 1990s about hexavalent chromium. I guess their matters or their research doesn't matter because he Googled it. The issues that are most important here, multiple federal agencies and laws that I feel you guys have not addressed and you've not been informed about. The RCRA, the Resources Conservation and Recovery Act from 1976. The TSCA, the Toxic Substance Control Act from 1976, administered by the EPA. The NEPA, no NEPA review has been done. That is the National Environment Policy Act from 1970. That can result in an environmental impact statement, an EIS, only if the NEPA review does it. And you haven't, that has not been done to date. The ODA, the Ocean Dumping Act from 1972. The Endangered Species Acts from 1973. These are all acts and regulatory stuff that's over 50 years old. And it is the responsibility of the applicant to address these issues, not to cover it up because the guidance document only says PCBs. You have a responsibility to address these issues. Also, you mentioned specifically the National Historic Preservation Act that was resulted from 1966. You chose, no one twisted your arm to buy a historic vessel that's on the National Register. Nobody twisted your arm, but you have to abide by what the rules are. I'm not here to talk about the 106 review. That's not my concern. Environmental is what I wanted to address, and that was not permitted to me 2 weeks ago.
Thank you.
Okaloosa County's purchase of this vessel was a burden put on taxpayers. As Mr. Perry said in that last clip, no one twisted Okaloosa County's arm into buying the ship. Okaloosa County reefing this vessel is like opening Pandora's box. Unforeseen consequences are just as they sound. Unforeseen. What will happen to the water in 50, 100, 500, 1,000 years? What exactly will the long-term effects of this project be? The SS United States artificial reef is Okaloosa County's magnum opus, or at least they think it will be. In reality, we are like a rat chewing on electrical wire. We will chew, 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 until suddenly, it's too late. Are we not like the rat in the situation? Are we not testing fate in these circumstances? And if so, at what point do the rewards outweigh the risks? How much money or tourist income will it take to make the pollution of our waters worth it? I implore you to come to your own conclusions, but I personally know my answer to that question.